Welcome back, YouTubers, to another NXT review with me, Mr. Parkin, on behalf of the British Fist. If you have any comments on this NXT show or anything NXT related, put them down in that comment section below. You guys should know that by now. And I've got quite a lot I want to get off my chest about this NXT, as quite a lot of little bitty things happen throughout the show. So I'm going to start off by talking about the opener, which, what a way to kick off. Ascension versus two jobbers. So once again, the Ascension are just beating on two jobbers to show how dominant they are. I think it's got to the point with the Ascension now where you need to do a little bit more than just have them beat jobbers. You need to be involving them in feuds with some legitimate tag teams. But the problem is NXT doesn't have any legitimate tag teams, so you really have no direction for the Ascension right now. An example of the right champions, but don't really seem that important unless they have legit challengers. So it looks like, after defeating these jobbers, it looks like they're now, instead of called Conor O'Brien and Rick Victor, they're just called Conor and Victor. You know, I kind of like that a little bit better because it's just one name rather than your typical NXT first and second name. But does it really make that much of a difference? Does it make them a little bit more mysterious? Maybe if they change their names rather than just keeping the same first name? I don't know. Or was it just me as well? Or did it seem like the fans were just chanting really sarcastically for this match? Like, this is awesome. It was just like, it wasn't like they meant it was awesome. It's just they meant it to be sarcastic. I don't know. I can kind of understand why, though. The Ascension's title reign lately has been very good, and it's through no fault of the Ascension. It's just because they haven't had any real legit challengers go against them to create an interesting feud. So this year's NXT pick to go in the Royal Rumble was Alexander Rusev. Last year it was Bo Dallas who went out to eliminate Wade Barrett. Nothing came of that really. But this time, Alexander Rusev is a guy who's been working dark matches for WWE Raw and SmackDown lately. WWE are obviously incredibly high on him because they trotted him out there in the Royal Rumble, probably to see what kind of reaction he would get or how well he would perform in a match like the Rumble where he could be a little bit dominant and maybe eliminate a couple of people. Problem was, no one really knew who he was, so he didn't really get any kind of reaction. He was just kind of sprung on us rather than being built up to go into the Rumble. But he was somewhat impressive in my opinion, as you would expect a massive, you know, European guy like him to be. I highly doubt he'll be part of the roster going into WrestleMania season, even though there's been rumblings that he may be part of the roster. I'd say if you're going to bring him to the roster, save him for after WrestleMania. When all the WrestleMania hype dies down, he'll just get caught up in that whirlwind of hype if he debuts now. But I have no doubt he will be part of the roster at some point soon. This is WWE's way of just testing the waters with Alexander Rusev a little bit. But it's nice to see that WWE are giving, you know, some young guys a chance in the Royal Rumble rather than giving some old washed-up guys a return in the Rumble. So Corey Graves returned to TV on this edition of NXT, and he cut a little promo basically warning the roster that he was going to be, you know, dominating NXT, etc., as you would generally do if you're a heel such as himself. He had a match with Camacho, and I'm really not all that bothered about Corey Graves and Camacho. I guess I care a little bit more about Corey Graves because I don't really see Camacho as a babyface at all, especially coming out on that bling bike. It just screams heel to me. So Corey Graves is back now. Another addition to the roster, I guess. And you know, the one thing I will say about Corey Graves, even though I am not really a massive fan of Corey Graves, at least unlike most wrestlers who don't seem to know how to use psychology to end their match, at least he uses psychology to get to his submission finisher. We saw him working the knee and then using his submission finisher, which the pressure is on the knee. So even though I don't like Corey Graves the most, at least he has the psychology side of wrestling down pretty much. So as we saw last week, Sami Zayn laid out a challenge to Antonio Cesaro for another match because he wanted to avenge his loss to Antonio Cesaro in 2013, which was the one dark spot on a very positive year for Sami Zayn, as he said. And they basically just had Cesaro go up to him and say no. So they're doing this to continue this on for a certain amount of time, and they did. They had two backstage segments on this show which kind of continued this storyline a little bit. You had Antonio Cesaro basically flat out saying that he doesn't need to explain why he said no. You know, what's the point? You know, he's already defeated the guy. Why can't people take no for an answer? Which is logical from a storyline standpoint, I guess, if you want to continue this on. And then you have Sami Zayn basically saying he's not going to get away that easily, and next week he wants him to say no to him to his face. I'm guessing this is going to be some kind of promo segment, and I'm looking forward to the face-off between Sami Zayn and Antonio Cesaro and seeing if Sami Zayn can actually get another match out of Antonio Cesaro down the line. I think having Antonio Cesaro say no, rather than just say, yes, let's do this, is actually dragging this on a little bit more and adding a little bit more intrigue to it to see if Sami Zayn can actually get Antonio Cesaro somehow to agree on a match. So that was well done this week, I thought. I remember when I first saw the Bayley character debut on NXT, and she was just kind of like a designated jobber who didn't really have any kind of gimmick. But I must admit, over these last 6 months or so, I believe it's been that long now, NXT have done a really good job of giving her a gimmick, cultivating this gimmick and getting the gimmick over. I mean, it's got to the point now where, you know, Paige used to be my favourite diva and she is the NXT Women's Champion. But it's getting to the point now where I'm actually rooting more for people like Emma, who is now currently on Raw and SmackDown doing her Evolution stuff in the crowd. And I'm more rooting for people like Bayley. And it's purely because Bayley's character, you just have to root for. There's no way you can't root for this kind of like childish, you know, wanting to hug everyone, innocent Bayley character. I mean, it's like when a child does something very wrong and they know it and you know it and you want to punish them, but they give you the puppy eyes and you're just like, oh, I can't punish you. You know, it's like that kind of feeling of Bayley. That's the kind of gimmick. That's how over she is right now. She is quite over with the NXT universe. And she had a match on this show with, you know, between her and Sasha Banks, which was there to continue on the Bayley versus, you know, the BFFs feud, and more in particular, the Bayley versus Charlotte feud. I imagine somewhere down the line, them two are going to have a match where Bayley finally gets her chance to get some revenge on Charlotte for what she did, joining the BFFs, etc. Bayley gets the win with the belly to Bayley. I think that's quite a nice name they have for that finisher. I also like the storytelling here in the sense that Bayley, instead of going straight after Sasha Banks, she went straight after Charlotte on the outside, and that kind of like cost her the beginning of the match where she could have mounted offense, but instead she decided to go straight after Charlotte, who she's the one having beef with right now. So I thought that was good storytelling in this feud as well. Also, we had Renee Young on commentary, and turns out that if William Regal was 20 years younger, they could have been the big WWE power couple. Like if you think that would have been a good idea back in the day. So Sylvester LeFort is still trying to recruit clients, only this time it's not in the backstage area. This time it's in an office, because that guy is good enough to own an office. I mean, look at the guy's beard. That's all I can say. You get a guy called Cal Bishop coming in, an all-American wrestler, but Sylvester LeFort doesn't want him because his ears got cauliflowered and he doesn't want to show the ears on TV. And then later on in the evening, we have Mason Ryan coming in, who says if he can beat him in a match next week, he'll work for him. And I was thinking, really? You know, you really think Sylvester LeFort is going to beat a guy like Mason Ryan? I don't see the point in this. I really don't, because there's just no chance of the heel winning. And I know exactly what's going to happen now. The heel is probably going to end up winning, and I'm going to look like a fool. But I guess, in the one hand, it was setting up something for next week, but it involves Mason Ryan and Sylvester LeFort, you know, two characters that right now are very irrelevant and that I don't care all that much about as much as I used to. One of the best segments of the night was the segment involving Tyler Breeze and Colin Cassidy. You know, at first I was thinking, well, this is a bit of a random match. Like, these guys have got no real reason to face off, but you had a couple of sections to this match. You had the match itself, you had the storyline continuation, and then the post-match, which in my opinion made this segment just an overall complete good segment. You know, we also learned in this segment that William Regal had a man crush on Aiden English, which is kind of weird, but there we go. And we had a lot of entertainment aspects in this match. You know, you had Colin Cassidy mocking Tyler Breeze by just grabbing a phone out of the crowd and doing his own selfies, you know. And we got a This Is Awesome chant before a punch was thrown as well, which I thought was kind of funny. So we had entertainment there because Tyler Breeze is always doing selfies and Colin Cassidy started doing loads of selfies of himself in a really sarcastic manner. I thought that was incredibly entertaining. As for the match itself, you know, again, we had a lot of fun in this match with Colin Cassidy hitting Tyler Breeze in the face, and just to see how he would sell it. Just to see how Tyler Breeze would sell someone hitting his face is entertaining to me. The match itself, it was nothing special, but in my opinion, just through the psychology used and the crowd interaction, it was quite entertaining in my opinion. It kind of helps that Tyler Breeze is kind of over and has a unique character that you can, you know, play to the crowd a little bit. And Colin Cassidy is kind of the same. He has the SAWFT soft thing going for him. So that's good. And then we get to the storyline continuation. We have Aiden English getting on the Titantron and basically looking like he's going to attack Enzo Amore in the backstage area, you know, which in my opinion, the commentators really should have played up a little bit more because he kind of has a broken leg. And to attack someone that has a broken leg is in a wheelchair is kind of a big deal, but you wouldn't have thought that by the way the commentators were selling it. And then you have the distraction of giving Tyler Breeze the victory. And what made this segment even better and more effective from a storyline standpoint, in my opinion, was the fact that you didn't have the segment end like that, with Tyler Breeze getting the win and Colin Cassidy in the ring feeling like he got screwed over. You kept the cameras rolling. You had Colin Cassidy going to the backstage area and seeing if Enzo Amore was okay, to see if Aiden English did actually attack his friend. I mean, that was the reason why he got distracted and ended up losing the match. And, you know, basically, we get to the backstage area. There's a bit of banter between Enzo Amore and Colin Cassidy, which is always entertaining. And it turns out that Aiden English just made a threat to Enzo Amore backstage, didn't actually attack him. And when he said that, it seemed to bring out a real new level of intensity for Colin Cassidy, as if to say, you know, if you fuck with my friend, I'm going to fuck with you back. So because of what they've done here with Aiden English and the Enzo Amore stuff and the way they structured this segment, we had a very entertaining match with some very entertaining aspects to it. Good storyline continuance, and just an overall segment which seemed to have a lot to it, and it was just very well done. And now I'm really looking forward to seeing how this storyline goes onwards between Aiden English and Colin Cassidy, because they've, you know, given Colin Cassidy a new level of intensity in this feud now, and it will kind of give another level to his character too, hopefully. The match I really didn't want to see on this week's edition of NXT, which was set up last week in a backstage segment, was CJ Parker versus The Miz. I have no idea why NXT brought in The Miz to feud with a CJ Parker who has no real relevance on the show right now. So I just had no interest in really seeing this match. I mean, apparently CJ Parker isn't feeling the vibes from the NXT universe. For how long, CJ? How long haven't you been feeling these vibes from the NXT universe? Has it been, from the day you debuted? Because that's what it seems like to me, brother. The fans have been booing your ass ever since you debuted with this stupid-ass hippie fucking druggy gimmick. Anyway, the match itself wasn't actually that bad. There was some entertaining stuff in there with, you know, The Miz doing the Ric Flair chops and getting the crowd going and then doing the figure 4 leg lock. Those kind of things are generally going to be over with, you know, NXT crowds that are generally going to be smarter wrestling fans who know about Ric Flair, etc. I just think, just like I said, this wasn't that bad. Miz got the victory here like he fucking definitely well should have done. I mean, he main evented WrestleMania 27 as WWE Champion to face John Cena and won. Mainly thanks to The Rock. That's another story for another day. I just think if you're going to bring in Miz, who, like I said, main event at WrestleMania 27 and at one point was a big star in WWE, they should, I don't know, maybe use him on someone that actually matters on the roster. Maybe someone that actually is getting over. Maybe someone that doesn't have a stupid-ass gimmick like CJ Parker. I don't know. They could have feuded him with anyone on the roster apart from CJ fucking Parker, and I probably would have cared more about that. That's all I'm saying about this. So in the main event, we had a contract signing with Adrian Neville and Bo Dallas, basically signing for their match that is going to happen on the live February 27th edition of NXT for the NXT Championship between them two. And this was a kind of weird segment in the sense that it didn't really go the same way that most contract signings go. I mean, first of all, there was no table. It was done by Renee Young, who isn't really any member of authority, you know, such as like a JBL on the NXT roster. It just felt like a very informal and very weirdly structured, but kind of uniquely structured contract segment in a way. Because you had Bo Dallas, you know, you had Adrian Neville sign the contract saying, you know, fair and fair dues, etc. with Renee Young. You had Bo Dallas coming out, who actually got quite serious, which I think was good because he does have a big match coming up on the live show. We don't want him to be all jokey like a guy like Cena would do, etc. So he got very serious and said he's just very tired of Neville. You know, because let's face it, Neville has had a lot of opportunities at his championship now, so I can kind of understand that from a realistic and storyline standpoint. And basically, instead of signing the contract, Bo Dallas shows why he is NXT champion, the longest reigning NXT champion, by quickly defeating a jobber. And I don't think we've ever seen this in a contract signing before. The champion actually wanting to bring a guy out just to show the challenger how dominating he can be. You know, by defeating a jobber in about 30 seconds to a minute. I don't think we've ever seen that in a contract signing segment before. It's like William Regal said on commentary. Why would you put yourself in a position where you're going to have to be physical with someone when you don't necessarily need to? But I also like the fact this match showed that Bo Dallas had a more serious side. He wasn't just this delusional heel. He actually can be serious and actually can legitimately beat someone up. Obviously not legitimately, but I mean in a wrestling match kind of way, legitimately. So we've never really seen a contract signing segment like this before. And then we have after the match, the contract is signed by Bo Dallas, and then we do the typical, he cheap shots Adrian Neville flies to the outside, then they end the segment by brawling, etc. So just for the fact that this was, even though it was a bit weird, just with the fact that this contract segment was just done in a much different way than the usual contract segment's done, I'd say this is a good main event segment for NXT. As for my overall thoughts on this week's edition of NXT, I thought it was a pretty good show. And it was mainly because there was so much going on scattered throughout the show that had my attention in terms of storylines. You know, last week's show just felt like a load of jobber matches and like it didn't really feel that important. But this week, we had plenty going on in terms of storylines. It's almost like NXT put all the storyline stuff in this show and all the jobber filler stuff on last week's show. But I mean, we've got the stuff between Cesaro and Sami Zayn. You know, the Bayley and the BFF storyline. You know, you've got the Sylvester LeFort trying to recruit clients storyline. The Colin Cassidy and Aiden English storyline continued this week in a very good segment. You know, you've also had the Asian Devil versus Bo Dallas hype for the live show, which is going to be happening in about a month time on February 27th. So a lot was going on in this show, which kept my attention. There was a lot of variety. That's why I thought this show was very good this week, even though there was a lot of short segments in there, here and there, etc. So I thought it was a pretty good show this week. I really did. Let me know down in the comment section below what you thought of this show. And in the description box, there will, of course, as usual, be a link to this show and Brandon Stroud's Best and Worst of NXT column, which I recommend you guys read like many other people. Thank you very much for watching this review. If you have, I have been Mr. Parkin on behalf of the British Fist. Goodbye.